One of the places that I come when I'm really wanting to reconnect with my roots is Colorado. I love to come to the mountains. It's a place that reminds me of how beautiful the world is and how great my God is. On the way up to the mountains this time, my daughter asked the question, "Daddy, how can somebody look at all of this beauty and not believe in God?" The fact of it is whether you believe in God or whether you do not believe in God, it's basically a faith statement. No one can prove the existence of God, and no one can prove that God does not exist. We have such limited knowledge that we're not able to determine and tell. But there is evidence to believe one way or the other.
I'm an engineer by training. Engineers apply scientific and mathematical knowledge to practical problems. We don't work on hunches and guesswork or superstition. Everything we do has to have a scientific, mathematical background. It has to be tested. We don't build something without having a pretty good idea that it's going to work properly. I spent 35 years of my life as an atheist, from the age of 17 until 52. During that time, I just flat out did not believe that God existed. I started questioning my atheism around the age of 50. I got to thinking that there has to be more to life than just trying to get wealthy, have a happy retirement, and then die. There just had to be more to life. And as I looked at nature and the world and the universe, I came to the conclusion that this just could not have happened on its own. There had to be some kind of powerful creative intelligence behind our existence, behind the very existence of life. I started looking at nature. I started looking at things like cells. Even the simplest cell, like a little bacteria, is so complex that there are literally thousands of interactions going on inside that cell. You take any one of those away, and the cell either dies or loses its ability to reproduce. Now, to get from molecules just swimming around in a pool to that level of organization necessary for life is a huge stretch.
As I look at this world and I look at the beauty and I look at the symmetry and I look at the intricacy of it all, for me, I can't help but believe that it was created by design. One of the areas where faith and science coincide is the fact that we both believe that the world had a beginning. My friend Bill Toller gave an illustration one time about the probability that our world was designed by choice and not by chance. He used the illustration of a person having 10 coins, and with a marker he would write 1 through 10 on each coin, and he would put them all in his pocket. What are the chances of him reaching randomly into his pocket after shaking them up and pulling out the coin with number 1 on it? Well, obviously you have a 1 in 10 chance of doing that. But suppose that he returned the coin to the other 9, shook them up again, and he pulled out the next time the coin that is marked number 2. In order to pull out coins 1 and 2 in sequence, you actually have a 1 in 100 chance of doing that. If he returned that coin to his pocket and he put them all back in, shook them up, and he reached in and he pulled out a third coin, and it happened to be the number 3 coin, the chances that he could do in sequence, number 1, number 2, and then number 3, jumps to 1 in 1,000. If he did this each time and took a coin and put it back in his pocket and continuously pulled out the next number in sequence, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 10. By the time he got to number 10, if he pulled them out in sequence in 10 successive tries, he would have 1 chance in 10 billion that he would be able to do that by accident. Now, I don't know about you, but I would believe that if somebody were to do that, he must have some kind of system. My mind would begin to rebel sometime around coin 3 or 4, and I would think, this guy has a plan. He's doing something by design. There is something that he is doing that I don't know about that's helping him to determine exactly which sequence the coins are going to come out. My friend Bill Toller is a theologian by nature, but he also has done a lot of study in the area of science. He said that if you look at how this world is created, it takes more faith to believe that it was created by chance than it was by design. He looked at factors such as how the earth tilts in exactly the right position. It wobbles on that 23-degree tilt, about 3 degrees either side. And he said if it wobbled either way, just a little bit more, life as we know it would not exist. He spoke of the thickness of the earth's crust and the depth of the oceans, and how if any of those things were just a little bit off, life as we know it would not be able to exist. He talked about the gravitational pull of the moon, and if it were just a little bit different, if the moon were a little closer or a little farther away, then again the earth would not exist as we know it. He talked about our distance from the sun and the elliptical pattern that the earth revolves around the sun with. He talked about biology and how oxygen is created, and how if only one of those things were not exactly perfect, then life could not have begun. And even at the very beginning, scientists tell us that protein was absolutely essential for life to begin, and the random chance of all the atoms coming together exactly right to make a protein molecule is just so incredibly random that it would take more faith to believe in that than it would to believe that there was design. If I were walking in this national forest behind me and I looked down on the ground and saw a watch, it may be that I'd never ever seen a watch before, but as I looked at that watch, I could tell that it was created by design. It had a purpose, it had a function, there was a system to it. I wouldn't just think automatically that this watch somehow magically appeared over thousands and millions of years of creation. My first thought is to say there has to be a watchmaker. That's the way I look at this world. I look at its intricacies, I look at its beauty, and I say it couldn't have just happened by accident. We didn't get here just by chance. It was by choice. It was by design that there is a creator behind it all who did all of this for us to point to himself and to help us to find him in faith. There's a principle called Occam's razor that basically says that given two choices of an explanation behind something and everything else being equal, it's the simplest that you need to choose. For me, the simplest explanation of how all this came into being is that there was a watchmaker. There was a world maker. That God is at work and was at work creating this beautiful place that we call planet Earth. In the 1600s, there was a French mathematician named Pascal. He later became a Christian, and he cared about his other friends that were also mathematicians, and he developed some issues of probability. One of the things he said is, suppose that I believe in God, but I come to the end of this life and find out that there is no God. Then I've really lost nothing from my belief. On the other hand, if I do not believe in God, and I come to the end of this life and find that there is a God, then I've lost everything. Whether you believe that God exists or you believe that God does not exist, it's a statement of faith. Interestingly enough, one of the things that binds us together as human beings all across the ages, from all cultures, from all around the world, is that every culture that has been found has had some belief in a higher power. You go to an isolated area where there's been no contact with the outside world, and there's still some belief that this was not a random chance world. That God, however he is defined, exists, and he had a hand in creating it. If God does indeed exist, which I believe that he does, then he created all of this world, and he created us for a purpose. And one of the things that we have to do in life is to figure out what that purpose is. That's one of the goals of what we're doing, and I hope that you'll join me in that search as you continue your spiritual journey.